Hi everyone, it's me, Tamara Lucky from the Mildred L. Terry Public Library. Let's get lit about literature. A challenge making the rounds on social media called How It Began and How It's Going reveals how couples are doing after having been together for months or decades. I thought I'd try a literary twist with a How It Began and How It's Going Get Lit challenge. My Get Lit challenge is around a book display. Titles by African American authors past who address race and social justice will represent how it began, and titles by African American authors present who have taken up the mantle in the discourse about race and social justice will represent how it is going. I invite your reflection regarding how it is going in the context of a post-racial America. The first writer past, William Edward Burghardt Dubois, born February 23, 1868, deceased August 27, 1963, is best known as W.E.B. Du Bois. A sociologist, historian, and activist, Du Bois' career spanned America's history from Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement. He authored The Souls of Black Folk in 1903. This book, which put forth the idea that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line, is often included in any serious conversation about race in America. Jumping forward to a writer present, we meet contemporary author Ibrahim Shlani Kindy, born Ibrahim Henry Rogers, August 13, 1982. Kindy is a professor, author, and anti-racist activist. He commented on the souls of black folks as is follows. In 1903, black newspapers typically shouted in unison, "The souls of black folk should be read and studied by every person, white and black." And today, it should still be read and studied by every person. This, it may be fair to say, is a commentary on how it is going according to this writer. Ibrahim Kindy's own book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, named one of the best books of the year by the New York Times Book Review, continues the conversation of race by suggesting that there is no middle ground between being a racist or not a racist in America. One is either working to uphold policies that add to the divide of which Du Bois spoke, or is working on policies and actions to bridge the divide. Jason Reynolds and Ibrahim Kindy's stamped Racism, Anti-Racism in You, penned in 2020, brings the conversation about race to a younger audience. In a backward journey to trace the roots of American racism, this, not a history book, illuminates for young readers some of the ways racism rears its head so that readers may do the work to identify and stamp out racism. Michael Eric Dyson's A Long Time Coming, Reckoning with Race in America, penned in 2020, brings the conversation about race in America to the pain and shock surrounding George Floyd's death in 2020. In essays, Dyson reaches back to the murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till in 1955, as well as addresses police brutality and gang killings today. One can fairly say that Dyson's book takes a look at how is it going. The second author past, Carter G. Woodson, born December 19, 1875, deceased April 3, 1950, was an American historian, author, journalist, and the founder of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Woodson was often called the father of Black history because he was one of the first scholars to study the history of the African diaspora, including African American history. Over the course of his career, Woodson wrote over a dozen books, but his most notable work is The Miseducation of the Negro, penned in 1933. Woodson is also credited for helping to create what we have come to know as Black History Month. Monique Morris is another author present who has picked up the baton from Woodson in her book Push Out, The Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools, written in 2016. Push Out chronicles the experiences of Black girls across the country whose intricate lives are misunderstood, highly judged by teachers, administrators, and the justice system, and degraded by the very institutions charged with helping them flourish. The final author past that I will highlight is James Baldwin, born August 2, 1924, deceased December 1st, 1987. Baldwin is one of the most widely read African American authors of the 20th century. His novels and stories frequently feature well developed African American characters confronting deeply entrenched racism and struggling with complex issues of identity, alienation, and disillusionment. In 1962, James Baldwin pens a letter to his 14-year-old nephew discussing the central role of race in American history. This letter was initially called My Dungeon Shook, Letter to My Nephew on the 100th Anniversary of the Emancipation. A second essay was added, and the combination of both works would become a novel called The Fire Next Time, written in 1963. It is considered by some as one of the most influential books about race relations in the 1960s. Eddie Glaub would be the final author present to be highlighted. Eddie Glaub's Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and its Urgent Lessons for Our Own, written in 2020, deals with the notion that it feels like we have been here before. While James Baldwin dealt with the murderous confrontations that were a sequel to gains in the civil rights movement, Eddie Glaub looks through the lens of Black Lives Matter and hopes that we can learn today from some of the lessons of the era before. For further study, please visit the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, where the annual theme is 2021, The Black Family, Representation, Identity, and Diversity. Look for these and other titles pertaining to this subject matter by accessing the library's catalog. Please plan to put a few titles on hold today.